Alright guys, live on YouTube, I am going to share the YouTube link on Facebook. Check it out. I have my cell phone right here. It's a OnePlus by the company called OnePlus. It's a Chinese company. Trust them with your life. I'm going to go ahead and share this link. Watch me. Hey guys, check out this link. The dojo is live. And then I'm going to share that publicly because I want everybody to see it. I'm hosting. That's right, y'all. First time on the internet, someone just posted a link on Facebook. Put me in the Guinness Book of World Records. Because we don't even have like a logo on our YouTube page. Amateur level is high. Oh yeah.
No man, it just means we're underground.
That's right. Need to borrow my hoodie? Oh man. Alright, cool.
Yes, maybe if I win the power.
Okay. Get that email action going. Alright, cool. Let's get started in about a few minutes. I think we got a good group here. Y'all feeling good?
Yeah.
Y'all pumped?
Yes.
Y'all networking? Nope. That's fine.
We're connected to network.
I mean, we could do like a live demonstration of how to network. Like, Daniel, come over here.
Hi there.
All right.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Omar. Jeff, nice to meet you.
That's a stupid.
That's not how you network. You do not insult the person that you are speaking with. FYI. And it's like, what up, Grayson? Man, you are thin for a man. Like,
You have a comeback.
I know. Open opportunity for a fat joke. And Grayson's like, no, I'm too good for that. It's like, no, man, go fuck yourself. Just kidding. I know.
You're fluffy.
Novogrodsky, you are not part of this conversation. No, I'm kidding. You are part of this conversation. Anyway, okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to 2016's very first CyberDEF Dojo. Let's give ourselves a round of applause for being here today. First and foremost, huge shout outs and many thanks to Secure Logics for getting us the food in this awesome space. If you guys haven't gotten hydrated yet, I highly recommend it because this presentation you're about to hear very soon is going to knock the water out of you. You're going to sweat bullets. And you're going to be like, oh man, I should drink that water earlier. Alright, so before we get started, I do want to make a couple of announcements. Jasek is super sorry that he can't be here. He's currently out of town doing some customer development, probably up in NYC, so he's wheeling and dealing up there for Secure Logics. So we show all the support to him, and he's really sorry he couldn't be here. But he does want to let you guys know about a couple of really cool stuff that's happening very soon. So, of course, he wants to give the Tech Block pitch. So how many guys here have heard of Tech Block, including you, YouTube? Alright, so if you haven't heard of Tech Block is an organization here in San Antonio that's all about activating San Antonio technology. They're the reason why Uber and Lyft came back into town. They're the reason why Mayor Ivy Taylor has opened her eyes up to the tech industry here. They're all about trying to make San Antonio a better city for tech people, for tech companies, and to get more talent and more companies here. So if you guys are looking for jobs, or looking for better jobs, looking for more opportunities in the tech industry, they're here to help you out. It's $25 for a year. You get 10% off at specific locations, usually around the Pearl and the Blue Star area. So if you want to take a hot date downtown, you get 10% off. Just don't let her know, or don't let him know. Depends on who you're dating. And you also get your first round, not for you, Grayson, but your first round free at the different bars that they go to, and you also go to any free Tech Block event. So pretty cool. I highly recommend it. You can go to satechblock.com to find more about that. So highly recommend Tech Block, and they're a big part of it. And Jason just sent me a message. Don't forget my points, brother. All right, I didn't forget your points, Jasek. I hope you like my pitch. And I'm not, encouraging young people to drink, which is why I told Grayson not to do it. Grayson's like 12. So let's move on. Next month is our February meetup. The dojo is happening during Startup Week. How many of you guys know about Startup Week? It's a week of startups. It's a week about encouraging entrepreneurship all around San Antonio for all different sectors. And so we have the pleasure of actually having the dojo at that time. And I want that dojo to be nothing but pitches. So if you guys have ideas about technologies, about businesses, problems that you want to solve, it doesn't matter if you did a lot of thought on it, just give me a 5-minute pitch, come over here, and you, my friends, will get a free 1-month membership at Geekdom. If you guys don't know about Geekdom, I can also give that pitch really quickly. But for every person that will pitch, Geekdom is willing to give your second month for free. So you sign up, pay $50 for the first month, your second month is going to be free. So many thanks to Geekdom if you're watching for supplying that. If you're not watching, I didn't send you the link. So I really want, this is going to be a big deal, guys, because what I'm also going to try to do is I want to get a couple of Councilman Gallagher, for example, and a couple military people to come over here and check out those pitches too. That gives you an opportunity to network and check out some new people in the area and really just kind of expand your horizons that way. So, bullet point 4 is one of the members here, his name is John. He reached out to me on Meetup and he said, like, hey, I noticed that there was some vulnerability at the library. He did a quality test and their SSL certificates were old and kind of they were using like SHA-1 encryption, and it wasn't very secure, and people were like, paying their library fees with credit cards and whatnot. So all it took was like a man in the middle to kind of steal that information, and all those people are so quote unquote effed. So what he did was he reached out to me and he was like, I don't know how to get to that library people. I reached out to my network. I got a guy from the library to come to the IT director, got on a call with the IT director, and he was like, hey, we're taking care of it, but thank you for letting us know. Let us know if anything else comes up. And it gave me an idea. What if we here at the dojo all keep our eyes out for different vulnerabilities in different organizations that each of you guys care about? So for example, you can run simple like web tests to test people's SSL certificates, for example. You can see if they're up to date or not. Or if you see a website that you constantly frequent and they're no longer using HTTPS. Anything simple like that, let us know. We'll reach out and we'll give you all the credit for finding it, and we'll see if we can start making the internet a much more safer place. And all it takes is just opening your mouth, sending a message, and letting us know. So if you guys are willing to do that, I'm willing to support you in that effort. I know JSEC is going to as well, and I know Will as well. Will, that was cool.
So not for my benefit, but for potentially someone else, would you be willing to anonymize that?
Absolutely. We can just say the community itself was able to find this. So if you don't want to be, announced as in like, Casey Blakesley found this by, accidentally during his surfing of illicit websites, we're not going to say that, but you can say the community has found this while the community was looking at some illicit websites. You know what I'm talking about? Just kidding. That's so that's what I'm talking about here, and people will be super thankful that we're doing it. So as a community, I think we can make the internet as a safer place. That's something that we can do together. Next piece. One of the things I also want to do in the future is I want to get some industry leaders to come to this meetup. And I want them to speak, like Jeff will be speaking later on, and like Will will be speaking later on. And I want them to tell us the problems that they're having and how the dojo can help. And one of you guys here could develop the business that solves that problem. Or you can build the technology that solves that problem. Or you can get a team together to solve that problem. The only way that we're going to be able to know like what's out there is if we connect with other people and we ask them these questions. And so one of the places I want to go look at first is the medical technology field. I want to see if I can talk to industry leaders over there for them to come here and to make stuff happen. So what do you guys think about that? Is that cool or not cool?
Cool. That's cool. What do you mean by medical technology?
I mean like doctors, I mean people who run hospitals, I mean people who work in the medical industry and are looking for solutions that are tech related to problems that they are currently having. And so there was a Texas Tribune panel discussion they had like in November or something like that, and they had like 4 panelists that were all representative of different facets of the medical industry here in San Antonio, and they all said that basically the same thing. Medical technology in anywhere is effed. Like, it's not good. HIPAA compliance can only go so far, and the amount of information going from one provider to an insurance carrier to somebody else to somebody else to somebody else is so much it's difficult to track. So patients have no control over their health information whatsoever. I can go on a rant about this, and I'm pretty sure other people can too, but I want people like that with real world problems to come here, and let's see if we can help solve those things as a community, as individuals. What do you guys think?
Yeah. So I love it. We'll make it. So I know very little about it in the detail, but in terms of that, it's a passion point for me. If I was smart enough to start a company, Bill Phillips, CIO of the University of Health, would be awesome. He'd come in here. He has a unique platform. He's talked about it, and no one's solved it. Of the DoD, VA, and University Health all sharing trauma
Okay.
all of South Texas. And his statement is, Omar's will make you the nurse, will make Grayson the doctor.
Okay.
So Omar's the
I'm
nurse,
okay with that.
and Omar needs an iPad with my information. I'm brought in from Del Rio, and I get a trauma. I'm landed at BAMC, I get transferred to UHS. Everyone's access, and it's all systems that aren't meant to communicate with each other. So exactly your point. I think San Antonio has an opportunity to be a pilot for how do you help systems communicate in a secure fashion. Everybody keeps talking about it. There's actually federal money to put forward to pilot programs, but no one's come forward with valid solutions. So that would be awesome. I'll throw Bill Phillips. He'd be great in this.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
At some point, yeah, Jeff,
Well, let's make it happen. Y'all cool with that?
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, let's make stuff happen. Next bullet point. Side door. There's a diagram on this side up here. According to the building, and we want to be respectful to our hosts here at Secure Logics and the concerted building people who work here. They want us to enter from the side door, which is in the parking garage. Is it on? It's on the bottom floor, right?
Second floor.
Second floor. All right. So what you'll do?
You were right. You turned the front one time. It
Yeah.
wasn't open, but that was months ago.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate turn of events. So what you'll do is, if you're going to park in the front or you're going to park in the parking garage, just go to the second floor, just go up the stairs in the parking garage, and you'll find the door right on the side of the building. So if you're facing the building, it'll be on the left side, just for housekeeping rules.
So sorry to bug you with questions. So there used to be like you had to put in a keypad. That would be the door that we open.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that one time that you got locked out, total fluke. Total fluke. Yeah, so we're going to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
I tried just different numbers.
So I got someone at 9 point, what's the number? All right, so next. Do you guys read the Rivard report?
Yeah.
Did you guys see the article about the dojo in the Rivard report?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, so how many of you guys are not on Slack right now? All right, we need to get you guys on Slack as soon as possible, because I pretty much like blasted that thing out. The Rivard report interviewed me and Jasek, and they were interested in learning more about the dojo and what's happening here. And I kind of revealed like what my dream goal is. I want the world's largest hackathon here in San Antonio. I want it to be like a 2 to 3 day convention with a learning track and a professional track, so people who want to get into the industry, they can learn about stuff from real professionals, and people who are already in the industry, they want to get better at what they do, they go through the professional track. The highlight of it is going to be the hackathon, and I want to get teams from all over the world to do CTF competitions. And very much thankful to one of our members here who's also provided us materials and curriculum to actually teach people how to do red team and blue team for CTF and other things like that. So we're organizing like a boot camp, if you will, to teach people how to do that. And we want to do that boot camp right before the competition, so people can actually enter and learn new things and actually try it out in an actual competition. So what do you guys think about that? You want to have the world's largest hackathon here in San Antonio?
Yeah.
We need more than 2,000 people to make it happen. Because currently the largest one was in Berkeley, and they rented out a stadium to make that happen. I want it bigger here, and it's going to be amazing. So I need y'all's support as much as possible. and I'll let you guys know, what things we can do over time. But just let people know, like, we want cybersecurity to be huge here in San Antonio, and we want that hackathon to happen. So that's one of the things that we was in that report article, and also Representative Will Hurd, who's also former cybersecurity professional, I think Air Force as well. CIA, that's right, he was CIA. He retweeted it, and he was like, I want this in San Antonio as well. So we have somebody who is in a great position to kind of support that as well. And then I'm going to reach out to Councilman Gallagher and see if we can get some more push for that too, because he's former Air Force and he wants that stuff to happen too. Last thing, before we get to Mr. Garrett over there, feedback. I want to know what you guys want out of this meetup too. So we can talk afterwards, or what we could do is you guys can send me messages on Meetup, or we can talk on Slack. Let me know what you want to see, what you want to hear, what speakers you think would be good for this environment, and we'll talk about it, we'll hit it up, and I'll see if we can make that happen. But I need to hear from you guys, because I have a lot of wants and desires and make things happen, but I also need to hear from you guys, because I want you to continue to come here, I want you to enjoy it, I want you to get learning out of it. It's going to be great. That includes you guys on YouTube, all maybe 5 of you. How many we have, Casey? Don't even tell me, I don't even know.
I think he's asleep.
Yeah, I think he's asleep. All right, cool. So those are all the announcements I have. I know it's a lot.
He's going through his feed.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm looking for that retweet by the senator. I was gonna post in the chat.
Okay, he's a representative. Yeah, he's a congressman.
Herd on the Hill is his
Yeah,
program.
at Herd on the Hill.
HURD.
Yeah. Also, one last thing. Who's going to South by Southwest in March? Who wants to have a dojo at South by Southwest in March? Who wants to get on a bus with the rest of the community members here to drive up to Austin to have a meetup over there?
Vice Grayson, we could put alcohol on the bus too in the cooler.
Yeah. So,
That helps more
We
hands.
can,
Yeah.
we can stuff him under.
Except Grayson's.
Yeah. We can put him like the luggage area. He's like, guys, it's so much fun. Yeah.
Can't breathe anymore.
But yeah, so we're thinking, Will Garrett over here and I are thinking about what ways we can get dojo members up to Austin so we can show the freaking world the talent, the passion, and the energy that we have here in San Antonio for cybersecurity and for all the things that we do here. So let me know if you guys are interested in doing that. Hit me up on Slack or send me a message on Meetup or send me an email. However you wish to reach out to me. I want to hear from you guys. So I got a lot of things planned, and so does JSIC, so does Will. But for now, let's hear from Will, because he has an announcement to make as well. So let's give him a round of applause.
Well, I do want to meet you, Grayson, because you've gotten so many mentions out here.
Grayson's awesome.
Am I supposed to stand somewhere? Is there like a camera?
Oh yeah, right this
Right
way.
there. You're supposed to be able to see him.
All right,
Yeah.
so we'll go to slide 2.
Go right ahead.
Um,
Slide 2 is the worst.
So no,
thing
so
ever.
who was here at the very first meetup? Dojo, couple, okay. So you heard from me, it was probably boring, but I run more on the economic development, industry development side of program cybersecurity San Antonio. Work closely with Omar and JSIC in the dojo. I've known Jeff when he's worn not literally the hat he usually wears, but multiple different hats over the years from Ratchet USA.
What he's saying is I change jobs about every 18 months.
And it's actually a great story. I don't know if he's going to talk about it tonight, but in terms of how, look at this guy. Now he's in a startup that will hopefully land in something we got planned. But one of the aspects that pertains to this group and this network of, I call it a hacker culture, but developing the culture that probably didn't exist prior to the DefSec meetup, now the dojo, is part of our program is how do you create jobs, whatever that means. How do you get a company to move to San Antonio? How do you help with an existing company grow? But one unique aspect is the military talent flow and non-military, but honestly, if you look at our ecosystem over the years, probably one of every 3 people founding a company, one of them's a .mil person. And so what we're looking to do, and as it relates to the dojo in this community, is launch an incubator in Q1 of this year. I'll throw out March 1st, maybe not actually March 1st because it's election day and there's different media issues there. But launch an incubator, probably home 1 at Geekdom, home 2 somewhere else, home 3 in a physical location downtown, standalone, or ultimately as Geekdom needs to expand, possibly co-located.
So why would we do that? Well, I mean, I don't know how many of you track incubators, accelerators. They're popping up everywhere. But there are very few, that have a network of mentors that exist here in the dojo and outside of the dojo, and we need to get them on Slack and in the meetup, that have done it here, transitioned to the Air Force or the Army or the NSA, have started companies, they've done it in Israel and worked through the IDF and Mossad model, and are willing to give back. And it's probably where I met Omar initially, not where I met Jeff, and I don't know, many of you in the audience. But ultimately, there's a mentor network here that's willing to give of their time to help security startup companies here in San Antonio grow. Our industry is largely services-based, which is fine, and that's great. God bless if that's what you want to do. But we need some product-based companies. SecureLogic's a product-based company in many ways. And so the incubator, and I say that in a very broad fashion, and thank you, Omar. Great, yes. Thank you for giving me the chance to talk to all of you. It may pertain to you, it may pertain to your networks, to your teams, to your companies. The incubator will not be launched, i.e. we're going to put a flag in the ground and say, hey, we have an incubator. It'll be launched in a very strategic way with companies already embedded, one of which is probably going to be Barricade. A small fund at first attached to it, although quickly ramping to a sizable fund that's market specific and focused. A formalized mentor network. In year one, we won't have an accelerator. If you're familiar with Techstars, Y Combinator, Mach 37. There won't be a formal accelerator program embedded in it in year one, although in year two, whether it's homegrown and developed by the community, or someone like Techstars chooses to focus in a cloud cyberway or cyberway, or someone like Mach 37, if you're familiar, who's looking to expand, brings another brand into the market. But there is a lot of interest locally to do this, and frankly even more interest outside of San Antonio if we do it right from a PE/VC standpoint. So it's really what I want to talk about tonight. More to come on it. A very quick turn, but something that's been a long time in the works. And if you have interest, if you know people, whether it's on the funding side, which more and more people are coming out of the woodwork because of those articles like in the Rivard report that will reach out and say, hey, we're looking to invest in these type of companies, we just don't know the market. Whether you know someone that wants to be involved in the incubator formally from the start, and then almost most importantly, if you have connections into the .mil space or into the startup space, we need to know those companies. Frankly, I was just up in Austin at a big innovation challenge pitching the DoD. 2 companies headquartered in here, no one I know has ever heard of. Security companies already have positive net revenues, startups, and they're just officing out of Regis workspaces, or they're out of buildings like this in a co-located space. Those are the type of companies we want to embed and create the culture that Geekdom has been great at creating. So come see me afterwards if you want, but wanted to let the dojo know about what we're doing. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Will. Very cool. So, one last thing. I also want to huge shout outs and thanks to our sponsors, SecureLogix for the food, the space. Second, DEF for paying the meetup fees and helping get the website up together, and also me and my scintillating personality. 3, O'Reilly. Did you guys know that you guys can get O'Reilly books for 40% off and ebooks for 50% off? If you're interested in getting some of those O'Reilly books, I can give you a coupon code and you get that discount right there just for being Dojo members. So hook up with me for O'Reilly, and also for Geekdom for sponsoring some of the memberships as prizes for the next meetup. Now, for the creme de la creme for the main event here, the return of investment on your security program. This is Jeff right over here. I'll let him introduce himself because he has a hefty resume. Like, goodness gracious, like Will Garrett over here just told you a little bit of the companies he used to work for. He gave me like a 3-pager of all of his qualifications. And so after reading a couple of sentences, I was like, all right, so I'm not going to say any of this, but he is well respected, well experienced, and wise. And I think we can learn a lot from him. And I really can't wait till Barricade.io comes to San Antonio and makes this their home. That's peer pressure for you. All right, so please give it up for our guest today, Jeff Wright.
Thank you very much. I hope I live up to the expectations set by that introduction. I am ready to get this going. So this is what I'm going to talk about. how many people here, I know at least one, how many people here were at the joint ISSA-ISACA meeting in December? Mike? Will, oh, no, you weren't.
I was pointing at the one.
Okay, yeah, so, and I knew Mike was, because I sat next to him. So, that's good, because most of what I'm going to talk about tonight is what I did there. So, only Mike's going to see me. I think you're going to find a lot of it beneficial. I'm willing to bet a lot of it's going to be new to you. Starting with the first acronym. And who can tell me what ROI stands for? Sorry, you can't do that one. You were first there.
Return on investment.
Return on investment, right. That means he was paying attention when Omar said we're going to talk about return on investment.
Thank
So very
God.
good. But it gets better, I promise. We're going to talk about that and a couple other things. And I'll get into my bio in a minute, if that's what you really want me to do. So, next is, I know this works, I do it all the time. There we go.
It's going through a bunch of.
Actually, I went
It
too
did
far.
work. It worked very well, Joe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it worked too well.
There you go.
Okay, so this is the only page I don't want you to read. But the reason I always do this is I'll make a copy of this in PDF available, so if you want it later, you can get it. And I'll give it to Omar, we can post it on Slack as a document.
Sure.
And the reason I do this is if you do look at it later on, and let's say it's 6 months down the road or something, and you want to use it, because there are some things you could kind of reference in here. I think it's always helpful to say, what was he trying to tell me when he told me this? Because it doesn't make sense anymore, and out of context slide doesn't mean much. So having the abstract there, I think helps. That's the only reason I leave it in there. This is, and Omar, you actually did get my short bio.
I know.
In fact, I think I titled it Short Bio.
You did.
All right.
Shortbio.pdf.
So I'm old,
7 pages.
and I've done a lot of things. So some things you might be aware of. I've been over in the industry for over 40 years doing this. I started a security program at Dell and at Rackspace, and I was a director of operations for the Institute of Cybersecurity, UTSA, for a while. I started a security program at CheckFree, which is part of Fiserv, the largest financial services company in the U.S. I started the security program at Arco Oil and Gas Company, which it went away before most of you were born. But it was the 7th largest oil company. Now it's still a retail brand on the West Coast, but it's owned by Tesoro actually here. So I've worked for a bunch of different companies, and whether it's I get bored or can't hold a job, I build programs, I really like them, and then I move on and go build another one. I'm a founding member of the Cloud Security Alliance. I have a couple certifications. I actually have more, I think. I'm an ISSA Distinguished Fellow, and I am actually very proud that October of last year I was inducted into the ISSA Hall of Fame, which actually I am very proud of. It's a matter of if you live long enough, you kind of get into it. And right now my job is Chief Security Officer for Barricade. And what is Barricade, you ask?
What is it?
Okay, it is not a padlock. That's essentially, in fact, this is the same design as and style as our webpage. That's why that abstract is the worst site I have. In fact, our web designer hates when I put the abstract in. He says, you completely blow our whole design, because there is a lot of space. There usually aren't eraser marks in it, but there is a lot of space. And what we do, in a nutshell, is we do real-time monitoring for systems, both system vulnerabilities that exist either in the version of OS you're running or the web server that you're running. You know, if you're 2 levels back, we'll say, you know, this is where you are. Here's a vulnerability you have. Here is specifically what you need to do to fix it. But then going forward, what we do more importantly is we look at all traffic, inbound and outbound, on every server that's monitored. And from that, we have an AI engine that determines what's good behavior, what's bad behavior, and in real time, we'll say, here's events we're looking at, don't worry about them. And then if anything escalates, we say this is an attack, which, by the way, sounds ominous, but in our vernacular, an attack still is probably not something to worry about. An attack is the equivalent of someone banging hard on your door. You know someone's trying to get in. If you know you have a good, strong door with strong deadbolts and everything else, you don't really worry about someone, you know, knocking hard on your door. That's an attack. Anything beyond that is escalating to an incident. And what we do then is find you and say, you need to address this immediately. Either an attack or an intrusion is imminent, or it is happening. And we do that real time. that notification is done most often for our customers through Slack. Slack should pay us.
They should. They really should pay us.
Just tonight, I think it's been mentioned 5 times.
Yeah. Dropping names like bombs.
Yeah, we also use HipChat, and if you like and you want to live 10 years ago, we'll do an email as well.
Nice.
Just because there are some people who just say, I want email, and I have an email distro box that gets all my notifications, we can do that as well. So the focus is real time, tiny agent on the server, all the processing is done on our part. And so I'll give you something to make sure, if you're interested, to stay to the end of the presentation. You've already heard of 2 benefits at least of being here at the dojo. That is either free or big discounts, right? Well, here's the 3rd for tonight. For anyone in the dojo, just send me an email or give me your email address before you leave, and I can give you a 1-month free trial of a medium-sized meals, which is our billing's based on bandwidth, a pretty good chunk. So if you want to try this out, or you're in your environment, you want to say, hey, I think I may want to install this, instead of the standard 7-day free trial, we'll give you 30 days. And if you want to talk longer, that's good too. Thank you. If you want to do that, just let me know. Happy to hook you up with it. And that doesn't expire. Like if you don't tell me tonight, you can call me next week, whatever it is.
Cool.
In fact, going forward, anyone that's validated as being associated with the dojo is eligible for that.
Cool.
Right.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. So the one thing worth noting, right now it's going to work best in a LAMP stack. We don't yet have a Windows agent, only because in reality we're not yet seeing the demand for it. If we see that, we'll be happy to port it over there.
Cool.
All right. So we're going to talk about return on investment. This is the second worst slide, but there are a lot of words in here that I would like to have you take a look at. Because everyone, ROI, really what it means is, am I making money or not? And that truly actually is what it means. ROI measures the return on anything you invest. So what it boils down to is this formula. You'll see it again in the presentation. Actually, I should use this correctly. Let's say, whoops. Here is, that's not how to use it correctly.
Yeah.
This is.
Oh, cool.
Wait a minute.
This reminds me kind of like evening college MBA courses.
Oh, I had to pick a
slide.
There. Instead of drawing a circle around, I drew through it, but I finally got it to work.
Nice.
Return on investment is you take whatever you spent to invest and you subtract that from what you got out of it and divide that by the cost of what you invested. It's not simply your profit. It is your net profit here divided by the cost, and that's going to give you a percentage. And this is a very important thing to investors. So if you're going to do a startup pitch next month and you think you want to get an investor's attention, it's real important to be able to say, here's what we see coming up from this. Here's the ROI we expect. Now, most investors with small startups aren't expecting a high ROI the first month or the first year. But if they don't see a projection for it to be positive in the plan, why would they invest? Otherwise they're just throwing money at you, which might be great for you, but they don't make it. So that's the reason I think it's important to do this. How many people here work on ROI now? One, okay. And the one that knew what's your name, I'm sorry. Jeffrey, see, that's why. So it's anyone else here named Jeffrey? Good, so we win. So the whole point of ROI, and by the way, if you work in a company, you should be doing ROI. And I'll explain why and how in coming up here. I'm going to talk about a few other things, most of which, so I asked this question already, most of which are things you probably know, but I don't really know them. So I'm going to do a level set. As I get to a slide, if everyone goes, yeah, I know that, I'll skip it, I promise. But let's see what falls out. Usability is something that you have to be able to demonstrate. This all boils down to, does someone want to invest in you or not? And that doesn't mean an external investor necessarily. If you can demonstrate 4 things, you have a usable system. That you have specified users of a system. Whatever you create, whatever that system is, you have to have identified, specified users. You can't just hope someone's going to find it, because no one's going to use it, right? You have to have, those users have to have a set of specified goals. That maybe they want to buy shoes, if it's a Zappos app. maybe they are looking at illicit websites and whatever else they're going to be looking for. But they have a set of specified goals, right? That system should allow those goals to be met effectively and efficiently, and the user should be satisfied with it. And the fourth component is, if you have the system used in a particular context, you have to focus on, is it a physical location, is it a given company, is it an internal-only app, is it a public app? You have to focus on that. If you can meet all those four, you have defined usability, which, by the way, that's your fundamental recipe for success. If anyone's done a startup and you talk about, if you haven't heard yet, an MVP, anyone know what that is? Not a
minimally viable product.
Minimally viable product. That is a very good definition of criteria to use for a minimally viable product. Because if you can do all those things, you have something that works, it's meeting goals, you have users, right? So don't overthink it, don't make it too hard. I'm open for questions too, right? So I don't want your problems, because I'll throw this. It's in a nice case. Testing. So you write code, right, and you test, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, who here writes code and doesn't test? There are some people that don't.
Sam.
And where did you used to work?
I'm here, and that's our lead tester.
So the two of you as a unit code and test. All right, cool. But this test, a good comprehensive test, tests the integrity of the system, which is more than I'm adding 3 lines of code to add this function. If your test said, is a function added, that's not a comprehensive test. That means that the function itself works, but you didn't test if everything else that was supposed to work before it broke. And feel free to let me know where I am on time.
No problem.
Okay, so very, very important. You know this, so I'm going to skip past that. How many people here don't know what this is? Okay, all right, good. So we're going to go through it quickly. Most people do, and I kind of expect that, right? That this is going to be the most common one. DevOps, this is a definition that I got out of DevOps for Dummies, by the way. It's not one I made up. And which, if you're new to it, it's really not a bad book to start. They're on the second edition now. I think they're working on the third. It's an approach based on lean and agile. I'll talk about those in a second. Principles where the business owners, the people that don't understand how code works, and development, the people that write code, and operations, and quality assurance, which does a lot of testing and other things, all get together, collaborate, and say, here's software that we as a unit created. Their DevOps, if done correctly, eliminates the I wrote the code, I'm giving it to the tester. The tester says, I tested it, I'm giving it to implementation. Implementation team says, I put it in production, I'm giving it to operations. And then the operations team would say, this code sucks, that's why it broke. But the developers say, my code's beautiful, you didn't operate it correctly. This should eliminate that when done correctly. And I'm guessing, just from the people I've talked to over the past couple meetings, that a lot of you are in a DevOps environment, whether it's your own shop or you're on a DevOps team in a larger organization. You may be in a shadow IT organization. There's a lot of that, all right? The reason you do that is you can do changes. So I'm going to talk about Barricade quickly. We are a very agile shop. Agile as in when we order paper for a printer, well, we only have one printer. But when we order paper for it, we use Sprintly. We create a story for it. And then there's a task for it. It's been accomplished. We do everything. We have a big water cooler. When water is ordered, there's a Sprintly task in there. I don't think I've ever encountered anyone that does scrums and sprints and is more agile than us.
Wow.
Ever. And I give that to the founder in court, David Collier. And that applies to our code as well. You know, the agents are on the servers at the customer's front. We run the AI engine and do all the processing. We are averaging, I think, about 3 releases a week. So, you know, for a traditional waterfall shop, I was like, what? How can you possibly do that? You don't have time to test it and QA everything. We do continuous integration testing. So anytime we push any code into test, full continuous integration happens automatically. And all that regression testing occurs and then we push those changes out. So I'm not here to say, gee, aren't we wonderful, but it is a really good way to be able to respond. When Amazon announced its WAF, its Web Application Firewall, because of the way we did this, within 48 hours, we were the very first security product to have a direct interface into the Amazon WAF. Now, if you're not using WAFs, you either wonder what I'm talking about or saying why that's important. For us, that's a really big deal, but because of how we operate, we were able to do that in less than 48 hours. Another component of DevOps integration is, here's some of the definitions. It's agile programming typically uses cloud, smaller releases like what I just talked about. By the way, you're wondering, you want to talk about ROI, why is he getting into DevOps? Because I want to do a level set. We're going to get right back to ROI. A good DevOps organization combines development operations, hence the name. That's kind of where it comes from. Security, and this is one of the reasons I brought this up, must be a critical part of this. And it's up to security professionals to educate and integrate. And Mike and I were talking about this a bit before. Not for any particular reason, but it was a good concept to talk about. Because I believe, and there's a term that I want to trademark called security infusion. I believe we have reached the point in development in particular, but really organizationally, we're growing and we're building up to a rant that I'm about to have, by the way. It's coming out.
Here it comes.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, you'll know when it happens. All right. The security function historically, and I have seen it kind of grow over the decades. That's really hard to say. Into a very big monolithic, no, if I don't approve it, you can't do this. Which meant to smart teams, fine, I'll find a way around you, right? If you do security, people here are responsible for security. Okay, so, okay. Excuse me. There was one place where I worked, where I came in, and there was actually a couple of security people, but there really wasn't a phone department. And I started that up, and I asked the person who was kind of in charge, I said, what's the biggest security challenge you have? And the answer was, stupid customers. Yeah. Think about that, okay? Yeah. First of all, the person isn't evil, but had gotten conditioned to the point where everything the customer wanted to do broke all the security rules. So the person thought that they just had stupid customers. So I said, so why don't you get rid of them? And by the way, that was the only question it took for the individual to realize, well, they're really the ones that pay my salary. There you go. Maybe we can turn this around. So if it's not the fault of developers or operators when security doesn't work, it's the security function. But the security function shouldn't be doing it. What you need to do if you're a security person, or if you're in development and you have security people, make sure that there is infused within your processes ways to make security part of everything you do. So the security team only has to take a look and say, yeah, you're doing it right. There is no external testing. There's no handing it to the security team a week before implementation so they can say, no, you have to delay it. I believe we are... No, you're laughing because you've seen that, right?
No, I didn't see that.
About this?
Yeah, insert Jeff's rant of the day.
Yeah, it's coming. I told you it's building up, right?
People will know when it happens.
Yeah, yes, you will. So, agile programming, I already talked about this. Oh, I've added this. That's what came in right here. Okay?
Yeah.
So, I told you it's coming. Here it comes. Most of you will recognize the individual you see on this next one. That's Lewis Black. So, I'm giving my apologies to him. I'm not going to try to do an impression of Lewis Black, although I may build up to something that's kind of similar. Because here's two articles that I want to talk about that have come out. This was in November, and this came out last week. All right? Have you seen either of these?
Yeah.
If you follow me on Facebook, which you don't have to do, I ranted. I got into a Lewis Black mode, and it was, WTF? No. First of all, no. And what and why? 1 million cybersecurity jobs opened in 2016. Now, he's saying it's worldwide. There are not 1 million people that use good passwords. How in the world are we going to get 1 million cybersecurity professionals? Right? Really? So this is complete fiction. Cannot happen. If for some reason we can make it happen, it wouldn't make sense. This one talks about, it's the hottest one in the career track. Yeah, it probably is. And by the way, we need cybersecurity people. There's no question about that. I absolutely believe that. But this goes on to say how many tens of thousands that we need. No, we don't. In 2000, when was this is in 2004, the State Department, the Justice Department, and Department of Homeland Security stated that the federal government had to hire 5,000 new cybersecurity professionals. Do you know where they are on that? Anyone? Did you know that that was even a thing?
I was graduating from high school in 2004.
Okay, I wasn't.
Yeah.
Although I had, I just wasn't anymore.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, it makes sense.
So, yeah, we are at about 1,800. So if you take 10 plus years to hire 5,000 and you don't even get halfway there, how in the world is that ever going to happen? It certainly won't happen in my lifetime. Maybe yours. I'm taking because they picked on you so much. You may be the youngest here, but I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine.
What?
It's fine. Mine's there too. I'll just check on mine instead. So, for all the hype you hear about, you know, you can get any job you want in cybersecurity, well, you can. That doesn't mean you're going to be good, first of all. And second of all, we shouldn't fill up that many jobs. And here's my other associated rant to it. It's a previous rant that I'll add on, concatenate onto this one. See, when you get in the rant, words don't work right. If we were to hire those 5,000 cybersecurity professionals for the federal government, what do you think they would do? Someone has to tell me. What do you think they would do?
Memos. They make memos. Memos. They would write
Memos. And what would those memos say? There'd only be one word on them.
Correct cover sheet first.
TPS reports.
TPS
It
reports.
says?
No.
Yeah, that's all those memos would say. Nope, go do it again. This isn't secure. So we would have an entire new vertical of 5,000 people completely empowered to say, no, you can't do that. It's not secure. It's a threat. So we would grind the federal government to a halt. It has enough trouble working without that. What we don't need is 5,000 new people saying, no, you can't do this. You're doing it wrong. Go away. You're not secure. Stop. So I don't believe that we need and will. I don't think we need 5,000 security professionals in the federal government. I don't think, even if we could, that we should ever consider finding a way to fill 1 million cybersecurity jobs. I don't even think there's tens of thousands. But there are some good ones out there, and I think we need to stop with the hype that everyone ever needs a cybersecurity person, because if you go back to what I talked about with Agile and DevOps, if you make security separate, then you're breaking that model anyways. So it all has to be integrated. We need some good, mature cybersecurity people. We need security engineers, but we need mature cybersecurity people that can provide tools and oversee what happens in the DevOps environment, so we're all doing the right thing. All right? That wasn't a really bad rant. But I kind of got there. My voice went up a bit.
Your heart rate went up a little bit.
Yeah, it did. Just I felt it.
Yeah.
All right. So,
It's getting sweaty up in here.
yeah, we should.
Nice shirt. Wait, are there suspenders on that t-shirt?
No, they're braces.
Oh, okay. I thought the suspenders are on the t-shirt.
Oh, no, because I always wear braces.
Oh, okay.
And everyone here would be really in a bad way if I did it. But just so you know, braces have buttons and suspenders have clips, in case you were ever wondering.
That's good to know.
Yes, it is, because who knows when you need that knowledge.
I know. Those are actually very stylish. I like them.
Thank you, Rod. Thank you. Something had to be. Who was it that made the comment that I wasn't going to be dressed as a hipster? And I'm not. But this is the closest I could come. That's the way I did it. So.
Awesome.
It's getting real
Just-
in here,
Yes,
Jeff.
it
I know,
is.
man.
Zipped it, you're just...
BT Dubs.
Going for another water.
Yeah.
So containerization. How many people here are working with containers?
I want to work with containers.
Okay, you're not yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Actually, you look like you're in a minority here. Most people raise their hands.
Yeah,
So
I suck.
containers are great. Containers are the next version of what cloud computing is. And what you do is take a bunch of virtual environments and put them into, in essence, a big black box single app. In some cases, here's some of the tools. This is by no means an exhaustive list. Docker is, they always have goofy logos.
Yeah.
Docker is like a big container ship that looks like a whale.
That's a whale, yeah.
Yes.
It's a whale of a ship.
Yes, it is. And Amazon's EC2. So this is a room full of geeks. What does that look like to you?
Looks like Deep Space Nine.
Yes, it does. I think it's nothing but Deep Space Nine. with a bunch of container ships coming in.
So a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, well, I wonder how much they pay Paramount for that.
Probably nothing.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're Amazon, right? Twistlock is another tool that provides some security over containers. If containers are popular enough that we have an integration with Docker now, just because enough. Well, if enough customers say we want this, we do it.
Right.
And so it's not easy necessarily to do that because you have to find a way to have an external plug and then get in and do everything internal and then come out with the data you need. But from a programmer perspective, containers make things much easier, much more straightforward. So he kept saying that he was going to talk about return on investment, right? So let's get back to that. We have all the fundamentals, we had a rant, all the good things are done. So if you're talking to a finance person, you know, this is you, by the way, and this is your finance person with a hat. Actually, this person either has goofy hair or a hat as well. And you know, you can see the finance person says, "Great, what about the ROI? Don't bother me with buzzwords." Oh, I'm sorry. That's now you know I am not a stand-up comic. But there is a better way to talk about ROI because most people say there is no good way to measure security with ROI because you just couldn't live without it. Yeah, well, I can't live without oxygen either, but what's the ROI on oxygen? There is an ROI on oxygen because you know what it is. You can determine through clinical tests how much oxygen, how little percentage of oxygen you can get away with and still be alive. If you had to pay for oxygen, you'd know exactly how much you'd want to pay for it, right? So security is just like oxygen. You can always determine an ROI. Let's talk about risk management. I'm going to bounce around a bit, but it all fits in, I promise. Mike's seen this before. It does kind of tie together, right?
Yes.
Okay. Good. I already paid him once.
He's like,
I was going to withhold payment on the check if he didn't say yes. Right, thank you.
Cash, only cash.
So, oh yeah, okay. So, if you look at risk as that triangle, and actually I look at it as a three-dimensional tetrahedron, but go with the triangle for now. This is the risk that you have, however you're going to identify it. And I'm going to show you what components you want to put into that identification. If this is your risk, at least one vector is pushing on it towards, it's a threat. For every threat you have, and I want to come up with the definitions for you, it's trying to affect your risk and put it in a position you don't want to be in. So someone give me an example of a threat. Let's make it a computer threat. You can get into others, you know, it's not ISIS, it's not a herd of elephants. It's something for computers. What's a computer threat? Anyone?
Bad code.
Unpatched security is not a threat. That was a very good try. That's not a threat. We'll get to what that is in just a minute. SHA-1.
Unauthorized incursion.
SHA-1 is just a relic.
it's a whole new category.
Yeah, but okay, Metasploit used to attack what may or may not be patched. That's a threat because it's taking action that may or may not be able to exploit a vulnerability, which could be SHA-1, right? So a threat is an action that is either potential or in place. Another vector playing on this is vulnerabilities. That's the unpatched systems. And it's worth noting this because a lot of people follow the mistake of saying, I have my vulnerabilities, I had an external assessment, this is my risk. No, those are your vulnerabilities. Those are where you have an unpatched system, you have an old version of Apache, you're running IIS, whatever it's going to be. Yeah, that means that if a threat were to be addressed towards it, it would be exploitable, right? And then the last of these, and there's going to be one other pass, is impact. If you have an unpatched system that's your test system with no live data, what's the impact of that? Pretty small. But if you have an unpatched system on your production data that has all of your revenue generating, the impact's pretty high, right? So each one of these will end up altering the area and length of each side of the triangle. It's still going to be a closed triangle, but if it's low impact, this is going to reduce. So if you're going to do risk management, the other thing you need to put in there is probability, which is tougher to manage, but probability boils down to will something happen or not, and what are the probability? It's not timing, it's just a chance of it happening. So what's a probability of me dying?
100%.
Okay, is it higher than yours?
No,
Okay,
same.
exactly the same.
Yeah.
Timing will probably be different. Sorry, but but the probability
Oh,
is
man.
yeah, the probability is still 100%. Now, not everything's 100%. You can look at the probability of something happening. That all affects what that triangle is going to look like. So, go back to high school geometry. If you want to reduce your risk, what's the easiest way to do it? Reduce the surface area, is that what it is? Yeah. So how do you do that? That is right, but how do you do that? It's very straightforward. Risk management is easy.
Reduce the threats. Reduce the vulnerabilities. Reduce the impacts.
Yeah, you could work on all three. I have an
Yeah.
easier way to do it. Reduce one. If you can reduce one of these, what's the area of your triangle?
It's a lot smaller.
Very small, yeah. So if you know that the vulnerability is 0, you don't care about the threats. You don't care about someone trying to attack you if you know the attack they're using addresses a vulnerability you don't have. Your risk is 0 for that, yes.
Wouldn't risk management go into vulnerability management and making it qualitative and not quantitative? Instead of, you have so many outdated applications, but they'll be less vulnerable, and you can put those aside because they don't cause such a risk, and then you go for the ones that say might be, okay, that's backwards actually. You go for the ones that cause more and the ones that are less.
So I think so. What usually people call a vulnerability management program, which I think you're referring to,
Yes.
ends up, in my mind, usually being risk management.
Yeah.
Even though it should really only be this. So if you want to use the correct terminology, in my mind, because I'm up front, so I'm defining the words, right? Yeah. What you're saying, what you just talked about, is the more important systems, you can patch them later. Pardon me. I just did exactly what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. The less important systems you can patch later because the impact is less. So you want to find for all these 4, including probability, which situation, not vulnerability, but which situation gives you the largest risk area. That's the one you want to reduce first. It doesn't matter how important you think it is. If it's the largest risk area, it's the one you need to reduce first. And it's only indirectly related to how many vulnerabilities you have. All right? The last component of this is the toughest. And this is why ROI is so important. You have to determine your risk appetite. Oh, I forgot to mention a conference coming up. Because I'm giving a presentation on risk appetite. That's what made me think of it.
Okay.
And I have a discount code for it if you want. All right,
Nice.
it's on May 11th, Innotech.
Okay, yeah.
May
Innotech.
11th, Innotech will be here. I'm on the advisory council. It's going to be a great one.
Sweet.
Yeah, so if you want a discount coupon for that, I can forward that to you as well. For Innotech on May 11th, it's all day. You're going to pay with the discount coupon. You're going to pay like $15 or $20. It's all day. You get lunch. Lunch is first come first served. So if a lot of people and you're late, you're not going to get lunch.
Yeah.
But I know this group. So.
Sweet.
And a lot of good presentations in there. And there's an exhibit for with whatever sort of swag you're going to get. So it's a good one-day thing. So risk appetite. It's hard keeping me on the straight line. You've kind of picked up on that, right?
Oh, that's fine.
Who usually defines the risk appetite? The customer, right? Okay. So you have nothing to do with it?
I didn't put systems in that. You help them find out.
You're going to help them, yeah. But who owns risk? That risk appetite. But by the way, the whole point of that diagram was you never want that risk triangle to go outside the circle, which is your risk appetite, because then you are now in unacceptable risk territory. CIO might, right? CEO might. That's, by the way, that's Chief Risk Officer. And even though it says that, they don't always own risk.
Yeah. Is it just
That was my
everybody?
title once, and then I changed it just because, like, any chief.
Yeah.
So which one of these owns risk?
All of them.
All of them participate. Which one owns
Yeah.
CIO.
CIO?
I mean, CEO.
CEO? CEO has ultimate accountability, but who's responsible for it?
CIO.
CIO owns risk. So When the company decides to build a new plant, the CIO owns all the risk around it?
CFO.
The CIO owns the risk around building a new physical plant? You have a very broad scope CIO.
I think it's a trick question because you don't even have COO up there. If you're talking Valero, COO may own the power plant risk.
Yeah, for a
CIO may own the CEO's information risk. CSO may own. So
I think
It's not a
Greece
trick
is
question.
I'll
all
wait for
risk.
what's coming. Is you got
No,
something coming to the
no, the answer's up here.
CSO?
Nope, nope, nope. There's only one no one's mentioned, and it's the
Oh,
CFO.
because they have the money.
Thank you very much. The CFO owns risk
Yeah.
because the CFO controls what are we investing and what are we getting out of it, and what does that sound like?
ROI.
ROI, thank you very much. So the CFO typically owns the finance flow. That's what risk is, with the exception of life and limb, all right? And I'm going to exclude that for now because there's clearly that has to be a priority. Any place I work, it has to be anyways. So if you look at that as a separate category, every other element of risk boils down to, if we do this, will it make us a bigger company, a better company, or not a company? And if not a company is the answer, this is the person that's going to say, we're not going to do that. That's why the CFO ends up signing off on every project, even though they don't have a clue as to what you're doing. Right? But typically, especially if you get in a large organization, the CFO says, yes, we should do it or not, this is a worthwhile investment. So how do we fix the being able to define, I gave you components, you have the formula, which you're going to see again for ROI. I talked about what risk is and how we're going to manage it, and risk ties directly to return on investment. Higher, by the way, higher risk isn't bad. Higher risk may mean bigger return, but it also may mean bigger loss. And sometimes the organization, via the CFO, may say, I'm willing to take a loss on this investment because long term, here's what I think we're going to get out of it, right? You've heard that. So that the risk appetite and risk decisions tie directly to return on investment for every activity that's going to occur. Here's how you solve the problem of being able to define your ROI. Yeah, really. And it's not. And be able to, so here's another problem with the CFO. The CFO is the ultimate decider, although the CEO has the final veto of who gets how much budget, right? So is there anyone here that says I get all the budget I ever need? No, right? Is there anyone that says someone else gets more budget than I think they should? Anyone feel that? Yes, okay. Here's how you can fix that. Don't bribe your CFO, but take your CFO to lunch or coffee. And those are the only, other than hello and how's your family, whatever you're going to do with your CFO, or a CFO surrogate. You know, if you're with a large defense contractor, your CFO may be in Seattle or DC, but you're still going to have someone who acts in that role locally. That's the only thing you should say in that lunch. Ask them what's important, and then that's all you do after that. Whether you eat or not is optional. You need to listen very carefully to what the CFO says is important. And the CFO says, here's the 5 things we're working on for the next year. If you say, I need a new firewall with more Chrome and a bunch of other things on it, actually I can't use a Chrome thing anymore because that's a product too. If he doesn't think it's going to line up with those 5 things that he knows are important to the company, important to him, why does he care if you get a new firewall? That's why things get turned down. Now, I'm not saying this technique will have the CFO approve everything you do, but if you listen and listen really well, and then follow up after lunch with thanking the CFO for meeting you for lunch and outlining, here's the projects I have lined up this year, and how each one supports all of those important things, those 5 important things you're working on over the next year. What do you think your chances are getting those approved now? Versus some, we need a new encryption module that has a longer byte key, which is something he would never understand. Now, you don't have to make the CFO understand your language. You can speak the CFO's language and say, I'm here to help you, that's all I'm doing. And if you have a project that doesn't fit one of those objectives, either find a way to make it fit, or don't do it. As important as you think your project is, it might not be that important to what the company has, yes.
Okay, I have multiple clients. I'm a consultant, and I deal with multiple clients, small business clients, and one of the things, I took this advice from the time I heard it in the last meeting, and I put it to use, and I did meet the CFO, with who, one of the issues that I had was the fact that this company required PCI compliance, but the CFO had no idea what PCI compliance is. And of course, saying PCI compliance for us, it means the 12 requirements and everything else that goes.
Yeah, but he doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about the 221
right.
tasks.
But if we know that there are issues in there that are going to cost money, and we have a total amount of recommendations to get closer to PCI compliance, and we explain it to the CFO, and they respond with, there isn't a budget for that this year.
Okay, so go back to ROI, right? You can start off with, what you're saying is, here's what we think you should invest in compliance, right? Yeah, we recommend you invest $75,000 in PCI compliance. Let's go with that number for now, right? And yeah, we don't have a budget for it. What you say then is, so if you're not compliant, let's talk about what that cost is. And it could be that for a given company, the cost of non-compliance is less than the cost of implementing compliance, in which case the CFO may say, I'm going to live with the cost of non-compliance.
Accept the risk.
Yes, but accepting the risk isn't simply go away, I'll sign off on it. It's the cost of non-compliance is you can no longer process credit cards. Of course, it's a potential. The probability is 100%, but the timing is where it's going to be changed. So when you can do that risk, all the different threats of one of those, you won't be able to process credit cards, at which point your online business probably stops until you become compliant. So if you use that as an example, you could say, how much is that revenue loss going to mean to you? It could be just a small line of business to them. And they may say, yeah, I'm willing to lose it if it happens. In which case, that's a good decision for them. Being secure isn't always right. Also, being compliant isn't necessarily secure either. So I think if you can frame it in that very easy to see, here's the triangle and the risk appetite and the total cost of investment, you should be able to say this either makes sense or it doesn't. Yes, you're willing to say that you're going to take a bigger loss than it would cost to fix this for now, and you should be happy with that. Yeah, you didn't get the business, but if that's really where they are, you didn't want that business in.
But it also, it's a liability issue from my standpoint, that they need to understand that they heard it from me.
And you can document it easily for them. Yeah, document it easily. So that's a good example of how ROI really works to say, is your program going to get buy off on it or not? That's a good question. So the last thing, and Mike just demonstrated, after you say, here's the things I'm doing, do the things you said you were going to do. Don't say, well, now that I have them on my side, I'm going to do the projects I wanted. Do what you said you're going to do. And then next year when the budget cycle comes, he's probably going to ask you to launch, or she shouldn't be kidding. Day, by the way, is now, if you didn't hear today, I can't remember the name of the organization, called the word of the year for last year is day. Did you have a question, or are you scratching your head? Right. So another way to look at this is, here we go. I don't have a whole bunch of animations, so you have to enjoy the ones that are here, okay? This is you or your customer out on a limb on the tree of FUD. FUD stands for?
Fear, uncertainty, doubt.
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Thank you. By the way, this is what a lot of security companies sell. Oh, if you don't install this appliance, you're going to be attacked. Everything will happen, and all the hackers in Russia are going to know your children's birthday, or whatever they threaten is going to happen. Yeah. So that's FUD. All right. It doesn't mean it couldn't happen, but it's very likely FUD. We have a chart here. This is the level of controls, and these assignment security salespeople want to get you way over. They say you have to turn everything on. Buy all 8 of our appliances. If you buy all 8, we'll give you a discount. You turn everything on and lock down every port. Actually, a good example of this, and I'm not saying that DLP salesmen are selling it, but DLP is an example. Only because I think it's. Does anyone here have a DLP, a data loss protection implementation? Anyone? No one does, right? it was a really big thing. What it was supposed to do is filter every email and every outbound FTP and every outbound port 80 and 443 request and say, is there anything that looks like a social security number or a credit card number or date of birth or anything in that stream? And if it is, we'll stop it, and you won't have any data breaches that you have to worry about. Every one of those that I've seen done, there are some good products, but every one I've seen done never got out of, we're in monitoring mode, because when we turned it on, the report we saw was so huge, we figured it was going to be a 3-year effort just to get to the point where we would no longer have that happen. So that's an example, in my opinion, of you buy the software because of FUD, and then when you try to use it, you realize you can't get there. So there are some good products out there for DLP. Most of them don't really work for most common installations. Well, you can always track. This is something else you can show your CFO. The potential impact. Remember what impact is? We had it in the earlier slide. What's impact? Someone who didn't answer before. Impact. Not FUD. How big is a crater? Yes.
Like, if something were to happen, like the size of that, like if an intrusion were to happen, the amount affected by that?
Yes, exactly. So when a risk is realized, very good. When the risk is realized, here's how much it's going to cost you, whether in availability or money or loss of data, whatever it's going to be. So the more controls you have, this makes perfect sense, right? Your potential impact approaches 0. By the way, that's a Tempest data center at the far end. Which is, and if you don't know what a Tempest data center is, it's a standalone machine with no connections to anything inside of a Faraday cage, which allows no electromagnetic transmissions in or out inside of usually an 8-hour building that could withstand 8 hours of conventional attack. That's a Tempest data center. That is over there. Okay, none of us really need that. If you do, you can't tackle it. All right, we do have some locally. So the potential impact drops as you put more controls in, and the cost of those controls goes up exponentially with more controls. Can someone tell me why?
More to manage.
Very good, exactly why. It is more to manage. Instead of a linear, the more you buy, the more it costs than just a straight line up. For every one you buy, you put in one control, and that's good. You say, what does this break? Now I have to manage it, I have to administer it, I have to apply patches, I have to pay for maintenance. All that stuff goes into what does it cost, right? And then I put in a second control, which has all the same things, but now in addition, I have to say, does it conflict with anything the first control did? And then when I get the 3 controls, I have to say, does that one conflict with any of the first 2? Obviously, the higher you go, that's why it goes up exponentially. You should also be able to demonstrate to your CFO that as a good steward of investments and demonstrating ROI, you will always stay in that oval. You will never spend more to exercise control over loss than you would have lost if you didn't do it. This is security management 101 in my opinion. If you go to MBA school, this is a more general, same basic slide for investments, right? You never want to spend more than you would have lost if you didn't do it. So if you always stay in there and tie back to that risk management and take your CFO to lunch, you got it made. That's how you can do an ROI for your security program. So I'm going to go back. There's the you're going to have money grow. Now money doesn't grow on trees, but trees can grow out of money. Yeah, there's your formula again. Very simple, very straightforward. And the last thing I'm going to say on this is, if you're still wondering, gee, I got the concept, but I don't know all the components, this is not an exhaustive list, but for a pretty good deal, you're going to say, here's, at the very least, if you don't include this in your cost, you're missing something. There may be additional cost, but that's always going to be there. And then you can look at all of the gains. And here's where you come up with, here's the benefits over what I do, productivity. Chances are, if you're doing security right, you're letting people use more resources or save some time. There's opportunity costs that you would have lost if you didn't have a more secure environment. Loss prevention, clearly straightforward. Compliance-related cost avoidance, that's exactly what we talked about with is PCI compliance worth it or not. Increase customer confidence. You don't want to be the company that had the next big data breach, right?
No.
And as a result, the safer you are with that, the more sales and usage and upgrades you're going to get, which once again makes the CFO and everyone else happy. So you always want to make sure, this is another way of looking at that tree of FUD slide, that should never be more than this. And even if you don't use any other components, looking at that should give you a pretty good idea of how to come up with what are the dollar values and what's my ROI. I will leave you with that. If the best way, if you want that 30-day free trial, just send me an email, because I'll make a unique link for each person. You go in and then you can register for it. It will ask you for a credit card. We're considering doing away with that, but right now we have way too many issues with just coming to get a free trial. It'll ask you for a credit card. I promise you we won't charge it unless you decide you want to go past a 30-day trial, and you'll get warnings both on usage and time. So we're not going to let it go unattended, I promise. But that's in there so that you can easily convert. By the way, the trial is not inhibited in any way. It's not hobbled. So if you decide you want to stay with it, nothing happens other than we start charging you. Nothing else changes. You don't get new features when you start paying. So you're getting a full service trial. That's my phone number, that's my Twitter handle, and that's my Skype if you want to talk. And I'm still open for questions, and thanks for your time.
Any questions? Really? Not one? Okay, we do have a question from chat over here.
Okay.
Casey?
It's from Doug Copeland. He was addressing something that you mentioned earlier. He says that he does not agree with your comment of high-level, well-developed engineers because all of tech needs high-level employees. So if you're job hunting right now, all you see is senior engineers. Mm-hmm. And he says that a movement towards developing the resources is needed to stabilize the cannibalistic environment that tech is in right now, so that you can find the people that can learn and equip them.
Yep. So I agree with that, and I apologize if I gave the impression that only high-level people should be getting jobs. That's not what I intended to say. I'm sorry it came out that way. If I truly felt that way, I wouldn't be here, first of all, because that's why this place exists, right?
Yep.
That's the reason for the dojo. I completely agree with that. Plus, even if you have all high-level people, eventually we're all going to get old and die. So there needs to be someone else that's going to do this, right? So I completely agree that you need to build the right talent. Now, what I was trying to say is that the best way to do this is there's two paths. There's security engineers that want to end up being the security professional. And what I'm saying is we need fewer of them than most people think. What we need better are good developers and system engineers that are a little more broad, that maybe are in the DevOps role, that maybe want to be a Scrum Master or whatever they're going to be doing after that, that have security embedded in what they do. That will give you more value than hiring two security engineers. And I do stand on that. But the level thing, he's absolutely right. I didn't mean to give the impression we should only bring high level. So that was a good comment. And I think it does need to build that way. There was something you and I were talking about right before we started, and I was just about to bring it up, and then it gone. I can't remember what it was.
I can't remember either. But I think David, you had a question?
Yeah, you're familiar with the explosion of big data. You mentioned in
Yep.
your presentation briefly went through the concept of data lake and big data analytics. How is that impacting security? Is it creating new opportunities, or is it creating new security holes, or both?
Okay, so to repeat for anyone that's going to be watching the stream, the question had to deal with big data, and is big data and big data analytics and data lakes and everything else we're doing, is that creating more of a security problem? Is it no different, or what does that do to us? First of all, one way it affects security is it allows us to exist. Barricade, we are a big data company, and we're based in our language, and everything we do is analytics on a whole bunch of data from a whole lot of customers, where we determine in our AI engine what's good and what's bad. All right, so that's a personal view of it. But from a company is now doing big data, and by the way, big data is a tough definition. It's kind of now what cloud was, 6 years ago. Cloud is whatever you want it to be, as long as you buy it. But big data, to me, really boils down to, without analytics, big data is actually a liability. And that's where I think security comes in. where if an organization says, I want to gather all this data, and they don't necessarily look at the inherent value of all the different components, but they look at it as one big blob. If you look at all of your data as one entity, then you need to protect that data at the level that the highest security needs exist for any individual component. So that does create a security risk. Now, it could be as simple as, well, go ahead, put maximum security on everything. That'll increase your cost. You may want to segment some of it. That's something I would say that has a security effect, where security may say we may be better off segmenting to keep our costs down. On the other hand, what big data does is, from a privacy perspective, which is very closely tied to security, is there are much greater risks now of having significant privacy exposures that didn't exist before. Because now, if I have big data that addresses, 3 million people, when I have a security problem, it affects 3 million people. Hence, or more. Anthem. I think Anthem might be the biggest right now. The Anthem breach last year. Oh, how soon you all forget.
Yeah, OPM.
All right, OPM wins. Yeah.
Yeah.
OPM wins. Yeah, I'm there. I got my notification.
Yeah, I got my notification too.
So, yeah, OPM is the largest. You're right. I don't know why I didn't think of that. So that's a really big deal because a whole bunch of people have the same exposure. Now, OPM, it was not a big data issue. OPM was just social engineering. But with Anthem, it appears that it was a big data issue, that all they needed was one tap and they could get everything. Same thing happened with Target with the credit card data. So the mechanism doesn't change. So from that perspective, you still need to secure what needs to be secured. I don't think big data offers any new challenges other than it takes that risk triangle and takes the impact and really widens it out, which means it's a different management issue.
It doesn't really just it creates the surface, a larger surface with, you still have the same threats and vulnerabilities, it's just a bigger surface now that you have to monitor.
Yes, threats and vulnerabilities are the same, but with the impact really growing, now you have a whole lot more area. Chances are, if you don't find a way to reduce that impact, that risk is outside your risk appetite, which is bad for you. You should never be outside your risk appetite, never. Good question. Thanks, Dave. Any others? Yes?
How do you develop a DevOps culture?
It depends on where you are. You can only figure out what road to take if you know where you are first. All right, so I'll start with that one. And Yoda's in front of me, I have to say. That is Yoda.
That is Yoda, yeah.
Okay. I thought I recognized yours. So every journey start must with a beginning. Yoda would say something like that. So it depends where you are, but if you're in a traditional waterfall shop, the easiest way to try to develop a DevOps culture is to find a small project that you can get away with it. The reason DevOps really happened was, and I was at Checkfree right before, let's see, I can go back in sequence, before Rackspace, where an IT department would say, well, a business unit would say, I want this new function, and I want to get these tools, and here's how I want our sales program to work. This is pre-Salesforce too, right? And they submitted that, and the IT department said, well, I need to get your requirements. And that took a month, right? And then they get the requirements, and then they analyze it, and then a month later, after that, they say, we can do this for you for X number of dollars, and it'll take a year and a half. And a lot of business units got to the point where once Salesforce, I'll use sales as an example, came up, they said, well, I can just put my credit card in here and get the functionality I want in about 5 minutes. So that's how DevOps started, I believe, because internal departments wanted to be that agile. So I would say find a project, and it's what industry, like, are you comfortable sharing that? You don't have to say the name of the company, just the industry.
I deal with risk management. It's a lower level.
Okay. So find a project, whether it's a new advertising campaign or something you know that's going to be relatively short term, and demonstrate that you can quickly get something out the door and respond to, I want this feature added. Now they're using it, we're missing this. And look at DevOps for Dummies. It's a good place to start. using the agile methodology, say I'm quickly responding. Within a day of you saying this needs to be added, I can add it. And it works. And I would say that's the way to demonstrate how DevOps delivered quickly, and then find other people that enjoy that. And that's probably that's not a comprehensive answer, but I would say it's a good way to start. Don't start when we're changing the entire IT department to DevOps. That will fail, I promise. You have to start small. Okay? Any other questions? We're getting up to 8:18, so we're getting pretty close.
All right, let's give a round of applause then.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, cool. So I'm sure you guys learned a lot. Business side, security, and a little bit more security, and a little bit of DevOps too. So there's a lot more great things to come here at the dojo.
The others will be better.
This was great. Thank you so much, Jeff. Let's give him another round of applause, please. This is great. So if you guys want to let me know about your feedback about this presentation, about what you want to see in the future, please reach out to me. One last time, I want to give huge shout outs and thank you to our sponsors, SecureLogix, DefLogix, O'Reilly, and also Geekdom. I also want to say thank you for joining on the chat and YouTube. Really appreciate you guys checking us out. This video will be available on our YouTube channel. If you join our Slack, you'll be able to check that out. I'll have the links there for you. If you haven't joined our Slack, send me a message, and I'll get you on there. Cool. Any last? Go ahead.
Yeah, just a reminder, if you want, well, I'm going to give the copy of the presentation to Mark. If you want either a discount to Innotech or a 30-day free trial for Barricade, just send me an email. Or give me your card or something.
All right. Any last comments, questions, or concerns? All right.
Yeah, you have one.
Go ahead.
I wanted to know more about the red team stuff we're talking about.
Sure.
I would really like to see more of that. I'm a cybersecurity student at UTSA, and I feel that there should be a lot more hands-on type training. So I would really like to see a lot more of this red team training.
Cool.
Actually, I want to add a comment to that. You're at UTSA. Are you familiar with the National Cybersecurity Defense Competition?
Yes.
Okay. Are you on the team?
No.
Okay. Did you try?
I don't think I'm on that level yet.
Okay.
I want a little more experience and hands-on under my belt before I, make an attempt. Because the guys that they have right now are like really talented.
Yeah, they have a good team.
Yeah.
But they all started somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's probably what you're getting at. I'll give a plug for Panda and what you and JSIC are doing. Just try to lower the barrier to entry.
Yeah.
Do some initial CTF time for a team. Things so that it's not so long.
Yeah.
And if you talk to Dwayne Williams, who runs that program, or Jessica Archer, anyone over there that's running the NCCD program overall, or the team, I think Greg White, I think, is actually the coach for the team. Even if you're not on the team, it's good to talk to them about what would it take to get there, and then you have the opportunity to learn a lot of that here. So, good thing.
Yeah, so real quick to answer your question, your concern, we do have some curriculum that's being written by one of our community members here. His name is Rob Dodson. So huge shout outs to Rob for getting us that stuff. We're going to be organizing a boot camp type deal for people who are interested in learning red team and blue team. It's going to be like think about maybe do like a Saturday type deal. Like each Saturday in a given month, like we teach like 2 weeks red team, 2 weeks blue team. And then we kind of like maybe have like a hackathon at the end of it. We're still working out the details, but we want that stuff as well. Like stuff like this is kind of like high level, very general, but also really good stuff for us to know and understand in the industry. But also the hands-on piece of it, that's our hack piece. So the dojo is learn, hack, pitch. So we try to do like a learn meetup, then we try to do a hack meetup as well. So for the next couple of meetups, they'll mostly be learning and networking type deals. But once we get that curriculum set and we get some set dates, everyone here is being invited to be a part of it. And so we want that to happen as well. So thank you for bringing up that point, and I'll let you know and give you the confidence that it is going to happen. Vote for me in 2016. Give me a baby to kiss. Just kidding.
Make hacking great again.
Make hacking great again. Just kidding. No, but we call ourselves hackers, right? What does the word to hack mean?
To improve and create.
Means to innovate. We're innovators. We take something and we make something different with it. We create new value from something that was created to do something else. We take a hammer and we make it to something different. We take Linux and we make it to something different. We take a whiteboard, we use it.
But it's collaboration too. At the beginning, we didn't know what we were going to do for a mic or camera or getting it up off the table, and we all kind of collaborated, got stuff together, and it worked.
Yeah.
We had that.
So we're innovators. The word hack initially meant to innovate. It used to be a good word until someone made it bad, because there used to be hackers, there used to be crackers. Crackers were the bad guys. Never trust a cracker, ever.
Are you recording?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And so that word cracker kind of went off. I'm like, well, we'll just call them hackers because, you know, there's a double entendre. And so hacker meant something bad. Now it means, now what we're trying to do is take it and make it like, no, this is innovate. We're innovators. So let's make stuff happen, people.
And speaking of the recording, Doug Copeland is still in chat, and he responded to your question. You may already know about these things already, but he suggests smash the stack and hack this site as ways to intro how to learn that type of stuff. I just wanted to relay that.
Very cool. Any last words?
Live long and prosper.
All right. It's a wrap, guys. We'll see you next time.
Eat more sandwiches.
Thank you.